Hello and welcome to Toledo Cars. Today we teach you how to drive a manual transmission car. To start with, let's go over the basic controls. First, looking to the pedals, you have a new one on your left. It's the clutch pedal, and that disconnects the engine from the rest of the drivetrain. You'll use this pedal when you start the car from a stop or you need to change gears. The middle pedal is the brake pedal. You push this pedal and the car stops. And all the way to the right, you have the skinny pedal. This is the throttle. You push this to make the engine output more power. Next, let's look at the gear shifter. This is a 6-speed H pattern. It's pretty much the standard for manual transmissions. Some transmissions might put reverse in a different place or have less gears, but they will basically all be the same unless you're driving an odd dog-leg transmission car, and we can go over that in a separate video if we can find one. You'll see that the gears are numbered 1 through 6, and you should think of these like the gears on your bicycle. You use first gear to start and to go up hills, and when you need to go faster, you switch into a higher gear. I've found memorizing a simple pattern related to gear changes is very helpful. If you need to shift to a higher gear and the transmission lever is already forward, you pull it straight back. If you need to shift up a gear and the transmission lever is already to the rear, you move it forward and to the right. If you need to downshift, the pattern is just the opposite. If the gear lever is already to the rear, you move the gear lever straight forward to go down one gear. And if the lever is already to the front, it goes backwards and to the left. Another helpful trick is to use the shifter to help you find the right gear. If you're looking to shift into third or fourth, allow the shifter to center itself and then push the lever either forward or backwards. This works well because the transmission lever will always center itself between third and fourth gear. Now that you know this, if you need first or second gear, you can move the transmission lever to the left, or once it's centered again, if you need fifth or sixth gear, you can move the transmission lever to the right. You should familiarize yourself with these patterns and always know what gear the car is in and how to shift up and down. Now, let's put our understanding of the clutch and the gear shifter together so we can move the car. You'll want to start on a level surface so that the car doesn't roll. Put the transmission lever in neutral, allow it to center itself, push the clutch all the way down, keep your foot on the brake, and start the car. Next, with your foot still on the clutch and it pushed all the way down, put the transmission lever into first gear. As a side note here, you will generally operate the clutch with your left foot and the brake and the gas with your right foot. With the clutch all the way in and the transmission lever in first gear, you can take your foot off of the brake and hover it over the gas. At this point, the car won't move forward, and now you should start to slowly release the clutch until you see the RPMs drop. This point where the RPMs start to drop is where the clutch plates are making contact as you are releasing the clutch. You will need to balance the clutch around this position to both get the car moving and avoid stalling. To do this, you slowly release the clutch more and more, and if the car seems like it's going to stall, you either push in the clutch slightly or give it more gas. Once the car is moving at a walking pace, release the clutch completely. Be sure to take your foot all the way off the clutch, as riding with your foot on the clutch will degrade your clutch and cause premature wear. Additionally, the process I described for getting the car moving should happen relatively quickly. The less time you can spend slipping the clutch, the better for your car as it builds up less heat in the drivetrain. Some slipping is unavoidable because you need to make the transition smooth, and sometimes you'll want to move the car more slowly than first gear will allow. But generally speaking, try to get the car moving and the clutch fully disengaged as fast as possible. Now that we have the car moving and we've accelerated a little bit, you want to change to second gear. To do this, push in the clutch and lift off on the throttle. Keep the clutch held all the way down, and move the transmission lever from first gear to second gear. Once in second gear, release the clutch and get back on the gas. If you shift quickly, you shouldn't need to modulate the clutch like you did when you started. You keep repeating this process as you move through the gears until you find a place where you cruise at the speed desired comfortably. Now let's say you're slowing down to come to a stop. I sometimes downshift through all the gears, although this is probably bad for the car. You should generally use the brakes to slow down until the RPMs are too low to drive in the gear you're in. At that point, downshift to a lower gear that will get you closer to the stoplight or stop sign. Once close to the stoplight or stop sign, you can coast to where you need to go, and if you need to creep forward, put it back in first gear and start the car like you did before. This process should take some getting used to, but once you practice for a while, it becomes second nature. If you need to downshift while you're moving in order to accelerate rapidly, you'll want to push in the clutch, and with the clutch all the way in, select your next gear, and then give it a little bit of throttle to match the higher RPM that you're now going to be using, and let the clutch out. Add some threshold braking to this process, and you're in for a really good time in a fast corner exit. But that requires using your right foot to operate the brake and the gas at the same time, so we'll go over that in another video. I suggest that you practice starting the car and driving it around in a parking lot for the first few minutes. Once you've mastered that, try to negotiate a few pretend stop signs so you can do it out on the road. Finally, go out on some less heavily trafficked roads and try to drive like a normal car, going as fast as you normally would and shifting through the gears and everything else. With a little bit of practice, you'll become smoother and the process will become a lot easier. Expect to stall the car a few times and expect some jerky, not so smooth shifts. Keep the RPMs low as you're learning so you don't accidentally money shift the car, and if you're struggling with stalling the car and it's not moving very much, you should pause and take a break to prevent heat building up in the clutch system. And those are the basics for how to drive a manual transmission. That'll work and get you up and going in anything from a Corvette to a Miata. Have fun out there and write me a comment about your experience learning to drive a manual transmission.